You don't make a video for 2 weeks and then everyone thinks you're dead and that you're done with content creation, and it's just over and over, and God forbid I take a break and then... What's up, guys? It's Spear here, and it's so good to be back. For those guys who haven't known, I've been kind of busy with the move and stuff. I just recently settled down to a new studio space also, which has been great. So this has finally been all set up, the lights and the green screen and everything. And I'm slowly making sure that the rest of it is set up to create some more interesting content. So that's where I've been. I have kind of been around though. If you guys want to watch me live, I have been live streaming. It's been a little bit easier to do that than the videos. So of course, links to that are in the description down below. But today I specifically want to talk about the ban list. So Bandai just announced that there's going to be a widespread ban list, among other things. They announced SCR showdowns, when the spoiler releases for a bunch of stuff is going to be. So there's a lot of things happening with set 14 moving forward, which is really exciting. We just saw the starter decks with super players. So honestly, a lot of really cool stuff coming down the pipeline. One of which was their announcement of this widespread ban list. It gets me a little worried, I'm not gonna lie. So here's my take on it. I'm of the opinion that a ban list should really only be used to fix fix formats, not shape formats. So specifically problem cards. And I think Bandai has done an exceptional job with that, like 95% of the time when it comes to their ban list. A lot of their hits are very much geared towards issues in the card game, and I love that. My issues with bans like Yu-Gi-Oh, which it feels like this might be one, is that they shape the meta. They say, okay, we're tired of you guys playing with this set of cards for this long now. We actually want you to play this set of cards. And because these old cards are still so good that they're preventing you guys from playing the new stuff, we're just going to get rid of it, which I don't think is a healthy way of doing it. I think it provides a lot of anxiety to the player base. Like, I never want to feel like every quarter I have to roll the dice on whether my favorite deck gets hit on the ban list, especially because I'm a competitive player. And like it or not, there is a cost associated to playing this card game. And it feels bad when top decks, and you have to play top decks to perform, are always the ones that are getting hit. Of course, I'm not saying, non-top decks should be getting hit either. I don't understand why green gets hit from time to time these days. But just in general, I think it's one of those things to take into account. Which is kind of why I've never been a fan of the Yu-Gi-Oh style ban list. And I think Bandai has done an exceptional job at this point. But for some reason, this announcement about how widespread it is has me worried, because I think we're actually in a pretty healthy format. Overall, I think there's a couple of problem cards that are worth talking about. But in general, the tops are all pretty widespread, Just to take a look at the current meta before we give what I think are the breakdowns for what we're going to see on the ban list. There were a couple of online regionals that happened over the weekend. However, unfortunately, I don't have the results for those at the moment. So these are the ones that happened a week before. Huge shout out to Joey from Crossroad for putting it all together. I just threw them in a graph. So from what we see, just going down one by one, starting with the Massachusetts, we've got Reboot Gohan, 2 Mechas, Dark Broly, King Cold, Blue Baby, Cell Surge, Mecha Copper. Widespread, almost every color represented. Or every color represented, actually. So really, you do have a widespread, and it's not like there's not set 13 stuff in there. Moving forward into the Connecticut. This is where I think we're going to line up with where maybe the format could use a bit of fixing. 5 Mechas, a launch, Mecha Cobra, King Piccolo. Huge showing for Mecha there, and I think that's going to be true for most of these tops. Moving on to the Indiana, we have 2 Dark Brolys, Soul Striker, Bulma, Sin Shenron, King Cold, Vegex, King Piccolo. Again, some leaders we haven't seen before, as well as a multitude of colors. Moving on to Tulsa, King Piccolo, 3 Mecha Friezas, Dark Broly, Android 21, King Vegeta, and Vegex. Now, mind you, a lot of these regionals are smaller ones. They're in stores, capped at 64 players, but nonetheless, these are a widespread of data showing that multitude of decks are being played. And if we want an even bigger tournament, we have the Card Market EU Regional, which shows us 3 Dark Brolys, 5 King Vegetas, 3 Mecha Friezas, 2 launches, a King Piccolo, a Blue Baby, and a Soul Striker. So a bit less variety. I don't think we see green there at all represented, but we do see a bevy of decks. And we see the top 3. And I think this is where it's time we pivot to what I think will get hit, or what are the targets to getting hit? Because I think there's things they could hit, which we will talk about afterwards. But the biggest thing is what should probably get hit, or what would get. Now, if you're talking from my perspective of things I think need balance in the game, there are clearly 3 decks. First off, Mecha Frieza. Mecha Frieza, it's kind of funny that they fixed Mecha Frieza, printed a new version, and the new version is probably going to need a fix as well. I think the deck is heavily pushed, and the problem that I see with Mecha Frieza is that there's no reason to play any other yellow leader unless they are hard leader locked, like let's say Sin Shenron, because Frieza exists. You could play so many different packages, you can play so many different archetypes, and they all probably fit better in Mecha because Mecha gets so much free advantage from all the generic yellow cards it can include on top of archetype cards. Over this past weekend, I participated in a regional and I played 3 Mecha Friezas, 2 of which were blue-yellow, and 1 of which was skillless. And that skillless was probably the best skillless deck I've ever played against as far as yellow run leaders are, which just goes to show Mecha is incredibly pushed, especially when my opponent was able to draw like 7 cards on 1 turn with 0 energy. But all in all, I think Mecha needs something done. It's the same reason Broly BR got hit. There was no reason to run any yellow leader that wasn't Broly BR because Broly BR just did it better and then they errated him. And I think Mecha Frieza is probably in line to get it because every piece of yellow support is direct Mecha Frieza support, and no leader will do it better than Mecha Frieza unless it is like leader locked, which makes it really restrictive, like just from a design perspective, let alone the fact that it is very clear whenever you play in a regional that like half your matchups to a third to half your matchups are going to be Mecha Frieza. How do they fix it? I don't know. Maybe an errata to make his like Awakened Side OPT or something like that. I'm really not sure, but I think something needs to be done for the sake of not only the design space, but yellow as an entire color moving forward. Then we have Dark Broly. Honestly, I don't know what you do about Dark Broly because Dark Broly, I don't think there's a single hit that prevents the deck from keep going on. You could hit some of the Dark Broly pieces, but Dark Broly has been including so many other archetypes. You see variants now that run the Gogeta package, the Gogeta Xeno stuff specifically. It runs, you know, Overwhelm cards. There are so many things that Dark Broly can do, and it's so generic, and there is so much black 30k support that I don't even know what you would begin hitting, and I have honestly no idea what route that they should go when considering what to do with the deck. This one I'm really lost on. Dark Broly is incredibly powerful, but it's also hard to pilot, so it's just like, I don't know. I don't think it's overwhelming, but I think if we're talking about what decks could get hit, I think you can't have this conversation without having a conversation about Dark Broly. Am I for it? I don't know. I mean, I could see it. It's kind of about as far as I go. Do I think it deserves it? I think Dark Broly fills a healthy percentage of the meta, but Dark Broly is a very push archetype and it is very strong. So I wouldn't be surprised if it got hit. What you would hit, I have no idea. Honestly, I really don't know. Finally, the last one on the docket, I would say, is King Piccolo. I think it is probably the best red deck. The argument might be there for like King Vegeta, but generally I think King Piccolo is just better. Specifically, I don't think this deck is good. It sees some tops. It's very consistent, but do I think it needs a huge hit? No. I think this is like one of those where it might just need like an errata, not King Piccolo himself, but if you give Drum Unique, I think that would be enough. The hardest part about King Piccolo is that it pushes a lot of aggro because it gets a ton of bodies on board, while also having great defense in the form of Drum. You can have as many of them as you want on board. They're barrier blockers. They're really tough to deal with. So I think in general, Drum is probably the one errata where like if you give him Unique, I think that like pulls back the power level of the deck enough where it's still a very strong deck. It pushes a bunch of bodies. It can put a bunch of aggro. It has great defensive options, but I think it reins it in a little bit to a point where it's more in line with what the power level of the rest of the format is. Maybe, I don't know. Like I'm not super against this, but I was just like, if we're talking the top 3 decks and we're talking what could go from any of them, King Piccolo definitely needs to be in that conversation. And I think an errata to Drum, make him Unique, is probably like the cleanest way to do it without like outright killing the deck, which at the end of the day, I don't want to outright kill decks. I think there are ways to fix the game that don't involve us like having players lose their entire decks. So those are the biggest things that I think are, are probably on the docket to get hit. Not necessarily the ones I want to see, but the ones that, based on not only the representation in top cut tables, but just how the format feels in general, where they could align them. But they did say this was a widespread ban list. There are going to be bans, limits, erratas, which means that, it's the first time they make such a huge announcement about the ban list beforehand, which is kind of weird. I think the format's almost in a sweet place. Like honestly, you tune 2 or 3 decks and I think the format is in an amazing place. Already Top Cut's fully diverse and we see a bunch of Supreme Rivalry leaders being played at top tables, which means like the set's being played. It's not like no one is playing the new stuff. The new stuff is definitely there. So it's interesting to see what they're going to touch. Usually I feel safe about Invoker. I think Invoker's not worth getting hit. There are 2 players who top with it. Besides that, like it's a semi-decent deck, but it's a deck that's been around for over a year. And this is where we're getting to bans that worry me. Ones that, aim to shift the meta, force the meta in a certain place, even though certain decks aren't doing certain things. What could you do with Invoker? You could limit, here's the thing. If you do anything to catastrophic blows, the deck is dead. Like, catastrophic blow is what makes the deck viable, so you can't hit that. You can't hit the 3-drop Vegeta because that's the whole invoker thing. You get rid of him, the invoker aspect of the deck dies. I think you can still play the deck without invoker, because to be honest, the defensive generic pieces like Violent Raise and all that are good enough to get you to turn 5 anyways. But just to say, you could do that. So I don't really understand what you could do to the deck without killing it. I feel like any piece you hit is so crutch that you getting rid of it kind of kills the deck. But I know a lot of people have been waiting for it. A lot of people have been talking about it. So Invoker wouldn't shock me if it'd be in the conversation. Then there's Celzino. Celzino being the free play SCR that has devastated the format for a long time. It's a little bit toned down now. People now leaning towards the Kai SCR or going the lineage route. So people have pulled back on Celzino as far as their SCR of choice, but Celzino obviously being incredibly powerful. People have been demanding for a change to this card forever, giving him a cost, making his successor not free. I mean, granted, you still need 12 cost, but it turns out for yellow and green decks as like some of the easiest requirements to be in the world. I mean, Hexen Shenron can make it on turn 2. Like incredibly easily on turn 2 with like 2 bodies. So it just goes to show that it is a very tough card to deal with, a very tough one to answer. It wouldn't be shock me if Celzino got hit, although like it's a one of, like it'll swing some games incredibly, but like that's what SCR should do if they are the game ending variant. So it's like I don't know, I could see it. I don't think it will, but it's definitely something that could be on the docket. Next up, we have the free counterplays. I don't know about this one. They are reprinting Set 10, and Set 10 is where we saw the free counterplays, and this is one of the big reasons to want to reprint those, because those cards are incredibly impactful to the game, but they have completely skewed gameplay around them. I don't think we can talk about the game moving forward from the start of UW without talking about these free counterplays and how much they've shifted how the game is played. Some colors stronger than others, of course, but at the end of the day, I think they are so incredibly powerful. I could definitely see something being done about them because they have warped the way we play the game today. But I feel bad saying we need to ban defensive options in the game because the game is incredibly aggressive, and I think I'd argue the game needs more defensive options and not less. So I think especially when you tap out for unisons that don't give you back their energy. So on that front, because of the place that they want unisons to have in the game, I don't actually see these getting hit. They could. They're in the conversation. I know a lot of people have mentioned them. They have warped gameplay, especially Godseal and Charismatic Villain have done a lot in terms of shifting how people play against these colors. But also blue-green are like some of the least represented colors in the game. So, so if you take away their free defensive options, I don't really know what else they're doing. So I could see it. I don't think so, but it is in the conversation. And finally, of course, there are a ton of options, but the last one I think worth talking about is the cooler counter. One, it's a piece that goes in Mecha Frieza and helps them close out game very consistently for that deck. Secondly, it's a counter, and we've seen them really rein in on how much counters can do. You know, Battering's gone. The red ones that they've printed are very specific to a specific kind of counter. There's a lot of things that they really want to balance out, and counter is one of them. I could definitely see cooler being one. You know, it's counter, it's a body, and it potentially draws you 2 cards, which is incredibly powerful. And I don't know. It's definitely a card that I could see just because of their history with this style of card being something that they hit. But with that said, guys, that's basically my overview of what I think we are about to see on the ban list. You know, personally, again, I like ban lists at fixed formats. They don't shape formats. I hate the Yu-Gi-Oh style of ban list just because I feel like it's like very unfair to the player base, but we'll have to see. Who knows? Maybe they're all good fixes. Maybe they're unbans. Honestly, Cell could be unbanned. I've got no problem with that. I also argue Bardock could, but like with Mecha Frieza out and about, maybe that's not a thing we could do. I don't know. But in general, it's very exciting and very anxious moment for me in terms of the ban list. And I'd love to hear what you guys think. What cards do you think need to be banned, errated, limited, any of that, or come off the ban list? Because I think there are a number of cards that could definitely fit that criteria moving forward in the game. Please let me know in the comments down below. Guys, I'm back to making videos and I'm super jazzed about it. So if you guys like me videos, you guys gotta like the layout. Took a lot of time working on this one. Give it a thumbs up. Hey, if you dislike it, thumbs down works too. If you want to watch more of my videos, guys, we're jumping into more discussions, gameplay, all that. Lots of very cool gameplay. Keep an eye out for that, guys. That's almost ready. Subscribe buttons in the corner. Oh, it's the other side now. Subscribe buttons in the corner. And with that said, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Ciao.